Welcome back to another Mike is Outside Research Review Explainer. Today we're taking a highly specific academic economic impact study all about a rock climbing festival, and we're going to translate it into a practical, actionable playbook for you. So if you're a rural community leader, a parks professional, or recreation planner looking for ways to revitalize your local economy using the natural or cultural assets you already have in your backyard, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's just dive right into it. So we're unpacking a fascinating 2026 study published in the Kentucky Shape Journal. This research, led by Mead and colleagues, analyzes the massive economic footprint of the 2025 Rocktoberfest climbing festival. Now, Rocktoberfest takes place in eastern Kentucky's Red River Gorge. You might know the gorge is an internationally famous climbing destination, but what you might not know is that the surrounding five-county region is actually economically distressed. This study really looks at how a single, well-executed, community-based festival can act as a sudden, powerful economic engine for areas that desperately need that boost. Here's our agenda for today. 1. A Mike is Outside review. 2. The Rocktoberfest economic engine. 3. Demystifying economic multipliers. 4. The buy local advantage. And 5. The rural festival playbook.
Starting off with Section 1, a Mike is Outside review.
The survey data here reveals the sheer geographic pull of this event. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. This is a hyper-local event in a rural, economically transitioning area of Kentucky, yet it draws a massive multi-state audience. We're talking attendees from 19 different states. They're mostly clustering in the Midwest and South, sure, but there are outliers from as far away as Colorado, Utah, and even Massachusetts. It just goes to show, when you have a unique outdoor asset, you have some serious potential to draw outside money right into your local community. Moving on to Section 2, the Rocktoberfest economic engine. Back in 2025, for the event's 25th anniversary, researchers estimated that about 2,350 attendees, vendors, and volunteers showed up for Rocktoberfest. Now, the data we're about to look at is based on 119 really detailed surveys collected from these participants. These surveys captured exactly where and how they were spending their cash during the festival.
And here is the absolutely crucial point, the big number. Over $460,000. That is the amount of direct expenditures generated by those 2,350 attendees directly within the 5 counties that make up the Red River Gorge region. Just think about that. In a matter of a few days, nearly $500,000 is injected straight into local businesses. For rural counties that might be facing strained financial conditions, that's literally an incredible, highly concentrated economic boost.
Let's break that down to the individual level because it makes it a bit easier to picture. On average, every single attendee spent about $144 during their stay. And, wow, here's the real kicker. That $144 completely excludes lodging. Depending on whether folks camped, stayed in a hotel, or maybe rented a cabin, lodging added anywhere from $0 to over $224 more per person. But that baseline of $144, that is pure recreational and subsistence spending happening right there in the community.
So breaking down exactly where that $144 actually goes, the top non-lodging expenditures are surprisingly practical. We're looking at about $27 going to local gas stations, $26 going to full-service dine-in restaurants, and $25 going to retail, specifically sporting goods and festival retail. You know, it really highlights that when you host a festival, it's not just the event organizers making a profit. It's the local gas station owner, the local diner, the local general store. The whole community gets a piece of the pie.
Using industry-standard I-plan modeling, the researchers tracked how this spending rippled through the economy. Because, right, the money doesn't just vanish. It supported over $93,000 in local labor income, which means extra shifts, overtime, and solid wages for locals. It also generated over $77,000 in state, federal, and county tax revenues. In total, the regional sales output directly tied to this event topped $360,000. This data absolutely proves that festivals are vital investments for a town, not just fun weekend parties. All right, let's jump to Section 3, demystifying economic multipliers. Simply put, an economic multiplier is just a fancy way of explaining how $1 spent at your festival ripples out to support other local businesses. Think about it like a giant chain reaction. Say an attendee buys a coffee from a local diner. Well, that's your direct impact. But then that diner uses that same dollar to buy more to-go cups from a local supplier, or maybe pay their local electric bill. That's the indirect impact. And finally, the waitress at the diner uses her tips to buy groceries for her family in town. That's the induced impact. The multiplier is just the metric that measures that entire awesome chain reaction. In the specific case of Rocktoberfest, The researchers calculated a multiplier of 1.28. So that means every single dollar a visitor spent magically turned into a total of $1.28 of economic impact within the region. Now you might be thinking, an extra 28 cents? Big deal. But when you multiply that by $500,000 of initial spending, yeah, it adds up fast, and it showcases a highly robust, super healthy return for the local economy.
However, the absolute worst enemy of the multiplier is something called economic leakage. Leakage happens when attendees, or even your local vendors, have to spend their money outside of your community simply because they can't find what they need locally. For instance, if your festival attendees have to drive to some massive corporate superstore in a completely different county just to buy their camping supplies, that money leaks right out of your area and completely stops benefiting your community. Your goal as a savvy festival planner is to plug those leaks for good.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, the buy local advantage.
When festival organizers and attendees rely heavily on national chains for their supplies, food, and lodging, the money leaks out of the region almost immediately, straight to corporate headquarters that are probably states away. But when you aggressively utilize a local vendor supply chain, that money stays trapped right there in your community. It bounces from the locally owned campground to the locally owned restaurant to the local hardware store, literally compounding its value every single time it changes hands.
The researchers explicitly highlight this in the study. They point out that Rocktoberfest is hosted at a locally owned campground and that climbers frequent nearby locally owned restaurants. They refer to this as the locavore movement or the buy local principle. And guys, this isn't just some nice feel-good marketing slogan. The hard data proves that this intentional alignment with independent, local supply chains is what actually strengthens rural economic resilience. It essentially forces the money to stay home.
And finally, Section 5, the Rural Festival Playbook. So here it is, your playbook, pulled straight from the study's conclusions. If you really want your festival to be a true economic engine, you must force the spending into local channels. First, you've got to prioritize local vendors for all your event needs, and I mean everything, from the porta potties to the t-shirt printers. Second, integrate aggressive buy local messaging right into your marketing. Tell your attendees exactly which local diners they should be eating at. Third, highlight locally sourced food and goods right in your programming. And finally, make sure you collaborate with regional visitor corporations so you can share resources and really amplify your reach. To build this from the ground up, you just need to follow these 3 core steps. Number 1, identify your unique local asset. The Red River Gorge has world-class rock climbing. What do you have? Is it a historic battlefield, maybe a unique agricultural product, or an amazing river for paddling? Number 2, build an event that requires multi-day visitation. This is so important. The study noted that 98% of respondents stayed overnight. Multi-day stays guarantee heavy spending on lodging and multiple meals. And number 3, lock in those local independent businesses to service the event. That is how you prevent that dreaded economic leakage.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a close look at your own community. Ask yourself, what unique natural, cultural, or historical asset is sitting right in your backyard, just waiting to become your economic engine? By applying the lessons we've learned from Rocktoberfest today, you can transition a simple local event into a powerful, long-term rural development strategy. Thanks so much for learning with us today. Now, get outside, take a look at your community's assets, and start building.